Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian and this is Crusader Kings III's first winter teaser and dev diary number. Let's just quickly check on that number 84. I thought I would, bundle these two up because of course the teasers themselves aren't really enough content. There is a lot of really interesting content in number 84, so we're going to bundle these, and then maybe only next year is the first time that you're going to see another dev diary or dev video about CK3 from me when I then bundle up the CK3 winter teasers until then. But let's start with today's winter teaser. It was released just 16 minutes ago, as you can see, and it is the photo mode. Very interesting and very good. I like a photo mode. It does of course come with this idea, hey, instead of just a photo mode, it would be even better if we got, well, the barbershop, basically, the full screen barbershop right in the throne room, but let's put that aside. This is written by Carlberg. Thank you so much. It is the button that will bring up the photo mode of the court to make it easier to take memorable pictures of the events and happenings of your court. Along with this preview, we also thought we'd show off some more artifacts in their natural habitat. So this is the photo mode button right there. And let's take a look at the images that they have taken. We have been confident for quite some time that our players would want to take some pictures of what happens in their court, the interesting courtiers interacting, or from finally seeing your rival and vassal arrive to bend the knee. So for that purpose, the photo mode will give everyone the ability to pick what camera is currently active out of a curated selection. Some of these are camera angles that you've seen depending on different interfaces, and some camera angles only available in the photo mode. Let's take a look at this. So this is Hungary, quite clearly. Yep, this is the child king of Hungary, I believe. He got some sort of scroll. First of all, he got a pretty okay-ish looking throne room. We're going to see that as well. This is of course the European throne room, or one of the designs that they have right there. We have a tapestry right here. I wonder what this is. This definitely is Noah, right? So this appears to be the biblical story, maybe up to Jesus. Maybe including Jesus? I wouldn't know, but either way, that is quite a nice tapestry. I like the little shield they have right here. Then a pelt, okay. Honestly, I like the shield more than anything. I hope that you can have multiple ones. You can see it right here as well. There is a tiny little pelt right there. And if I could have a shield here and a shield there, I would do it. It should even be the same shield, right? I would be very happy with it. Anyway, this is the so-called overhead view. You can also see that you can hide the characters, you can hide the UI, and you can exit the photo mode. I'm just saying, now imagine your character and maybe some friends, some other select characters standing in front of your throne, or, somewhere wherever you want them, and you then being able to dress them and actually have them, in this photo mode via the full screen barbershop as well. That would be dope. Right here, we have the elevated wide view. This is the... I believe this is the Byzantine Empire. This is the Dukas dynasty banner, if I'm not mistaken right here. This is some sort of crown. Interesting, though, that he is wearing the same asset. It can't be the same crown. I guess that's just basically assets repeat. Oh, that's definitely assets repeating. These are the same crown twice. Either way, a good crown, but I hope that we get some different models there. I wonder what this is. I can't quite tell. It's probably a relic. It feels like a relic container, right? If you have a Christian relic container right there, then we have some Dukas tapestry right there yet again. Ooh, and yeah, look at this. This one actually has a wonderful, what is this? A hearth? Right, yeah. Down here we have some general... I don't know what this is. We've seen this a number of times now, and not a single time have I even been close to really getting what the images are about. I have to assume it's some sort of biblical story as well, but what exactly it is, I couldn't tell you. The people here are wearing, yeah, pretty classic clothing right there. Nothing too interesting to point out there. This is, on the other hand, an Indian throne room. The difference between, honestly, the Indian throne room and the European and the Mediterranean throne room that we have right here is staggering. This is a huge, huge difference. Interesting, by the way. The palms and the peacocks right there. Interesting. Huh. Right here, again, I don't actually know where exactly in India we are. I believe, though, that this is, of course, the Sultan or the Maharaja. This is his primary wife, and I think this is the secondary wife, because she is... I mean, that's pretty luxurious what she's wearing right there. I do like the guard. We have the priest. We have the spy master. We have whatever this is. This must be an important vase. Maybe something related to one of your ancestors, similar to this sword right there. Very cool stuff. Oh my god. Oh, I haven't seen this one. I like this one. This is a nice little statuette. I hope that we get more statuettes as we go, of course. The more the merrier. Up here we have another shield with a different form. It should be pointed out. I think that is important to point out that we have a classic European shield right there. And then we have a round shield right there. I wonder what determines that. I do wonder what determines the actual shape of it. We got some animal skin here and there yet again. And then here we have the, I believe this is the, not even last but not least, Jesus, we have a Mena throne room, so the Middle East and North Africa. We have the, I believe, Abbasids. I think these are the Abbasids. Is it just me, or does this armor look more detailed? I know this armor piece, so I know this armor piece because I've talked to the ethnicities and Portraits Expanded folks, and they really didn't like this armor because it's so low quality. Is this a higher quality form of this armor? I swear to God that the details that we have here, by which I mean the, what is this, the lamellar pieces, right? You didn't see that in such great detail. Either way, can we maybe see it here? I'm pretty sure this is higher detail. I'm going to be opening up the game after recording this. Over here, another round shield. Keep this in mind. That is actually quite interesting right there. Now that I see this, I'm not sure that we are in the Abbasid court. I'm pretty sure that we are in the Fatimid court. Isn't this the Fatimid symbol? Well, either way, what else do we have? We have some rugs right there. We have a stone right there. I wonder what that is all about. And we have this box down here. A bunch of different courtiers. Of course, this is the right wall view. We got a sword, maybe the sword of Muhammad, and I would love it if any of the characters could actually sit on this. Seriously, that would be grand. To just see somebody lounging, you know? Oh my god, you could even... Agamede, long game short, who has made the truly amazing full game, full screen barbershop. He has done amazing work, has uploaded a new form of the full screen barbershop anyway, just in the last couple of days. And just imagine dressing your characters as they sit here. Maybe you, your wife, your second wife, or the other way around. You, your husband, and your second husband. And you're all just lounging right there, having a good time. I would love that. I am, honestly, I gotta tell you, I do think, as much as I like the work that they've done in the throne rooms, I think there is a missed opportunity in the sense that we haven't seen anything. And you know how I am. If we don't see it, then I assume it's not in. We haven't seen anything for the full screen barbershop making it into the throne room because, man... that is a missed opportunity. That is like the key thing that I would have done first things first, right? Here we have yet again the Byzantine throne room. I believe this is the same one. And I just didn't see it, did I? No, it's not the same one actually. At least not with the same equipment. You can see it right here. We have a Byzantine shield instead of the Dukas dynasty banners. And then we have a book over there. I wonder what that is. We have a crown over here, but look at this. This is a Byzantine, either general, maybe it's Belisarius, maybe it is one of the emperors, actually, you know, having done their best on a campaign. Very, very interesting, and they have a bench right over here. Oh, we did also have a bench in this one, actually, now that I look at it, but the wall was also different. You can already see there is a bunch of variation. We're going to check that out in the upcoming Dev Diary. Thank you so much, Carlberg, for this one. Alright, so let's get Dev Diary 84 done. Building a Court, A Tale of Court and Art, and this one is written by Carlberg, who is the 3D environment lead artist, and today, well, last week, but, you know, here we are, we will be having a closer look at the development of the Royal Court Room. So this Dev Diary is a risky one, in the sense that you can publish this, and there is a good chance that it isn't really something people can pass. Many times, you know, when you give feedback, when you give information on what went into the development process, you will basically do it in a very, very intricate and very interesting way, but people most of the time, including myself, I'm not gonna, you know, put myself into the other group, can't really pass it, can't really understand it because they don't work in the industry. I will tell you, after having read this, that this is a pretty good look into this, and that it isn't particularly interesting because this is a very ambitious project. It took them an incredible amount of time, and there are many reasons for this, of course, but I will tell you right now that the ambition that stands behind this, the idea of sitting down and saying we want to push the boundaries of grand strategy games in a way that has never been attempted, I think that this is something that really comes across. The difficulties and what they try to make happen, what they made happen, that is something this Dev Diary, this story can really be told by it. I will also tell you I have some interesting content coming. Sadly, I haven't had the time to look into it further, but I have a recording that I would like to share with you in certain details. You're going to see what that is in time, trust me. That is also, of course, about the development of the Royal Court, which has been quite some time and has been a very different direction. Now, let's continue. This feature represents a great new step in bringing this historical era to life. Big thanks to Alien47 for the code, Stella 3D environment art, and Linus Tech Art, whose perspectives they've written down for this Dev Diary, drawn from their experiences from both code and art in the making in this feature. There's a really interesting statement here. And I know that there are a bunch of people in the fan community. I see the comments every now and again. The majority is a really big fan of this feature, but there are other people that believe that it doesn't really add anything to the gameplay loop. And I think it's an understandable point. I don't share it myself, but it's an understandable point because you don't share much time looking at your characters, just going, oh, what's going on there? I mean, I kind of do these days, you know, with the full screen barbershop, with EPE, with CFP, with all the great mods that add assets, right? But it's not untrue to say that's not the main focus of the game. But this sentence here is basically what my response to this point of view is. It represents a great new step in bringing this historical era to life. The more time you spend on a map, the more time you spend completely detached from the characters, and the more time you spend looking around what you could just conquer willy-nilly, you know, what is easy, what works, the less do you actually get immersed in the character existence that is the essence of Crusader Kings. It really has to be said that I understand holding court, you know, sometimes you get events that you will care for, I assume, sometimes you will get events that you won't care for, but the truth is that this sort of activity, getting down into the actual work of being a king or a queen, that is what Crusader Kings needs to do more. We already have a much greater feeling of immersion, of what it really was like to be a king, to be a queen, to be a duke, to be an emperor. But there's still this big step where, to some degree, you know, at some point in your campaign, you will just compare percentages. You will just sit down and say, what's the best move right here and right there? And that needs to be eliminated as much as possible, in the sense that the decisions you should be making should be, how does my character feel about this? And actually having a 3D representation is a huge, huge support of this concept. I understand, again, if you are primarily a map painter or a map gamer, it is what it is, and I support you having fun, but Crusader Kings' vision, I think, doesn't go into this direction. I think Crusader Kings' vision sits down and says, you know what, we want to bring something more to you. And that is why this grand ambition here is worth a lot. I hope that, you know, if you disagree with this notion, if you think that this is a waste of time and a waste of resources, that you at least get my point of view from, you know, a really, really dedicated role player that loves doing it. It really is something that adds a lot. A new visual feature, right. With the new 3D character systems implemented in CK3 compared to CK2, we wanted to show the characters of the Middle Ages in a whole new dynamic way. So as we started laying down the foundations of the Royal Court, we also wanted to bring the very courts to life and find continued use for these 3D characters. This new feature was a major step in that direction. Yeah, it is definitely something that I hope after this difficult birth, this difficult development process is over, that they can look at and say, you know what, we can now move further into directions that contain this. We have it easier, we have prepared things, we can get this done. Because man, there's a lot waiting here. There's a lot of potential waiting there, let me tell you. The prototyping. At the beginning of the core development, we knew that we were in for a challenge to stake out a new visual workflow within the engine that previously had not had any instances of contained 3D scenes and shared lighting systems within it. Yeah, basically, we're talking about something that is entirely new in this game and for Grand Strategy as a whole, I think, but primarily, of course, for Paradox, because otherwise you can just use some of the tools that maybe other teams have used, but that just doesn't exist. So we decided that to start off we needed a working prototype, laying a foundation and gradually adding more and more graphical features and complexity. Moving forward, only when we're sure the previous steps succeeded. We could already show beautiful animated portraits, and the courtroom had to be able to show the same people so players could easily recognize their appearance. Right, so it needs to spawn them in exactly the way they are, and not with, for example, random clothing or random faces. You know, hey, it could happen if you don't connect the dots there, and of course it is incredibly vital that they show up exactly the way they are dressed in their actual character windows. Could we reuse the same system that assembles characters, show appropriate body, apply transformation to show age, height, weight, apply the same clothing, hair, set the animation, first step, success. The people in the courtroom look exactly like the same as in portraits. Next step, is it possible to show many people at the same time in the same scene? This is quite different from portraits because there's mostly one person. In full screen barbershop there's many more people, but it does become quite laggy after a while. I've used it myself for some thumbnails. With some optimization, the room could now handle up about 20 random characters and even some objects. So the scene finally resembles a courtroom, although a bit dark. Let's take a look at this. Early prototype, we have the Duke of Bohemia right here, Vratislav. Then a bunch of other characters. We have, this would be an artifact, of course. These are, looks like they contain books, so bookshelves. Then there's just general stuff here, you know, so that you have it. Then you got windows, another artifact location, and oh my god, this creepy green guy. This is a killer, right? We can all agree. This is a serial killer. If you get that event chain, this is the guy. Alright, but what can we do with lights? The ambition for the court scene and requirement for lighting is much higher and more advanced than for regular portraits. At the same time, shadows naturally become much more complicated as well. People and objects can interfere with lights and it needs to be visible. Oh, that's so interesting, actually. Honestly, like, again, I don't understand anything of the technical side, but when you have a character in their location, be it an event, right, where two characters or more characters are standing there, or be it in the character interface, the lights only matter so much as it hits a character. In this one, if I throw a shadow, another character's model actually needs to interrupt that shadow, right? So there's definitely considerations, obviously, that have been made in the games industry, that have been made in the 3D environments, but that they didn't really need to make for CK3. That's very interesting to see that actually needs to be considered, right? At the same time, right, another issue was making sure characters and objects apply the lighting and shadows in the same way, so it's easier for artists to manipulate the scene and develop the assets. After a bit of time and several iterations, we had upgraded and made many improvements to the lighting system. Let's take a look at this. Everybody's a bit green, but you can see that the light definitely works. You have the shadows, they interrupt each other, so like they get together basically. This guy, I do think basically he's a bit darker because her shadow goes into him. But yeah, you got the shadows working. Honestly, yeah, nice. This is Malcolm, right? Yeah, this is the Royal Court of Malcolm of Scotland. Well, poor guy, if this is his court, huh? Right, early prototype, of course. Hey, I'm kidding. It was roughly at this time we felt we had confidence that the goal was within reach and all technology was working as we intended. It was also clear that we could afford the desired complexity of the scene from a performance point of view. After all, players should have an enjoyable experience both on the map and in the court. We had built an understanding of how many people the scene could handle efficiently, how many light sources and how many shadows we could allow, and this is one of the most expensive parts. Right, of course, the lighting itself. We saw in the dev diary before this one that the lighting that was basically in there looked much more gorgeous than anything that we had seen before that. So lighting, of course, you know, the visuals is something that you do fairly late. This is such an interesting scene because this is in a real 3D room, of course, but it does remind me a lot of Castoc's mod. If you know, if you've played the King's Book, I believe it is called, if you've played the fishing minigame, the jousting minigame, the drinking minigame, it does remind you a lot of this, right? It's this general, like, flatness that it has to it, the look to it, right? What do we have here? A tapestry. Looks like Jesus is king over here, so must be something related maybe to one of his speeches, right? Then we have some bookshelves right there, an artifact, a bunch of people in different poses. That is, of course, something you need to figure out. What is up? Is she flexing? Is she like, what a hunk? Right here we have somebody petitioning the king. This is Harald Hardrada, if I'm not mistaken. What else do we have? The same tapestry, of course, you don't need multiple textures, but yeah, look at that. The two Cayuse have also arrived and are here to murder you. But interesting, they were basically experimenting around in different, you know, configurations, different poses, and of course in different situations related to how the characters are communicating with one another. Very, very interesting. Right, from this point on, work on the courtroom continued with multiple people from different disciplines working very closely together. More and more features waited to be implemented, so you can now see the beautiful results of all this effort. Let's move on to concept art and vision. Being worked alongside the prototype was the vision we had for the royal courtrooms. We began by looking at the 4 main cultural areas we would be covering in the expansion: West European, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern and Indian courts. There's a big question tied to this, and I do wanna bring this up. When you do a flavor pack in the future, right? So you have Western European, you have Mediterranean, Middle Eastern and Indian courts, and as much as I wish there were more, at some point you need to make a decision. You need to make a cut-off point, and then you need to make that into a fairly normalized randomization situation, where basically you can be in Spain, you can be in Italy, you can be in North Africa, and you will get something that, you know, fits, but is also general, because of course it's a randomized asset that you get from the other stuff. But if you get a flavor pack in the future, let's say for Spain, let's say for Italy, let's say for England, will this flavor pack contain a throne room, for example? Will it build up on the royal court? Or will, since it would make it so that you need to buy the royal court and the flavor pack, will it make it so that this sort of throne room that would be added will be free in the free update that comes with the flavor pack? These are important questions, and I'm bringing them up because I want to consider this myself. Obviously, I would be very much the happiest if those throne rooms would be free with a free patch, because you already paid for the royal court, right? It would be a long-term addition, making it so that if you buy a DLC, the DLC would have more features going forward, which would be good, you know, from a consumer point of view. But I'm also bringing it up because I want you to be a thoughtful and considering consumer. That is very important to me. Listen, I do these videos, I talk to people that are in the community, I talk to people that work on the games, And what is very important to me is that we are all very clear about what we want and what we're getting, right? So yeah, how do you feel about this? This is a very important question for me, because when we have these 4 generalized one, where do we go from there? What do we add? Where is the paywall? Because you need to have a paywall if you want to finance the game. That has to be understood as well by people that buy the game, right? Where is your line here? That is something that always interests me. Now, what we have right here are different types. This is Mediterranean front wall concept, right? You can definitely recognize some of the stuff here, and you can also, I love this. Is this I wonder if this is like modeled after a specific person, a real life developer. It reminds me a bit of Rodrigue Del Rue, right? Either way, here we have the western front wall. Then we have the front walls. This is MENA. Yep, we actually will see this one. This one basically stayed the same. This one was adapted as it is. And this is Indian. Yeah, also very, very similar to what we actually got in the full package. Interesting. These are the concept arts that we got for the 4 different types. The West European court draws much of its inspiration from courtly interiors of England, Germany, France, and neighboring areas. Darker room lit by fiery hearths, candles, and chandeliers. In the Mediterranean, more inspiration comes from the Byzantine courts and those found in Italy and other areas of Rome. The rooms hint back at his grander past with larger roofs, domes, and columns supporting the walls and arches. In the Middle Eastern courts, we have a wider spread geographically, as these courts draw inspiration and cues from the courts all the way from Arabia to the architecture of Andalusia. In India, we encountered an interesting split, as influences in architecture were pushing in from the west, while there were still distinctly Indian courts. This was one of the reasons behind adding more court variants, so that we could cover more of these visual flares. Right, I believe this is primarily Indian. Yeah, these are Indian sidewalls right here. I like this, that they said we need to have these 4 top types, right? And then we randomize them, because ultimately, yes, it means you have 4 top types, but you have many more potential combinations. And that alone is a huge asset, to not see always the same throne room, to have variety. That is something that I very much appreciate that they considered that, because I do think, originally when they started with the Royal Court Dev Diaries, I also said, hey, what is it going to look like? You know, what is the difference between Court A, for example, France and Germany going to look like? Is it going to be noticeable? But as we went, I did notice that the different walls, not just the tapestry, we're going to see that, you know, obviously these are like different styles, but look at this. These are different styles, but they make a huge difference. And then you can move, for example, the columns around, the windows and such. That makes a big, big difference. So very happy that they went with this approach indeed. Each scene was broken down into components like walls, roofs, floors, and key assets like thrones, chandeliers, and fireplaces. While these were being designed from a plethora of references gathered from each culture, we also created variants in the concept. You will most likely have seen some variants of these when we've shared screenshots in the past dev diaries. Yeah, let's look at this. So this looks quite nice. Honestly, I love this court. What do we have right here? This is more Byzantine, so I assume this is basically more Western, right? European. This is the Middle Eastern, and this is the Indian throne room. Let's take a look here. I love how close the characters actually are to, you know, what they are in the game. I love this copy-pasted son of a gun. it's concept art, right? Listen, I'm just looking at all the details, or at least trying to look at it. I do enjoy just how different they all manage to look. It has been pointed out, in particular, this appears to be, I mean, he definitely looks like he is the Byzantine Emperor. And I mean, that's also the court, basically, of the Byzantine Emperor, right? I will say, as you have to generalize these courts, the truly unique and insanely powerful and colorful courts sort of get lost. Part of which, of course, are, for example, the Byzantine court. You know, when you look at, for example, I forgot the term, the Dias, I think, where basically the throne itself is elevated, right? The throne is always earthbound, if you look at what we've seen so far. Always earthbound, or, well, here actually you have one step up, but that's also concept art. But this is basically what you get, right? And I will say that it sort of gets lost. Most throne rooms were pretty much what we get in these variations, but the really outstanding throne rooms aren't covered, so that is sadly something that happens when you have to generalize it to give a broader appeal to it, right? So I hope long-term, indeed, that if we get a flavor pack focused on the Byzantines, for example, that we get a throne room if you own the royal court, right? That would be something that I would very much welcome. But the concept art phase did not end after the initial stages, however, because once the scenes were being put together, we returned to the concepts to try out the different lighting setups to help in the lighting of the rooms, giving our artists more ideas of where to focus the light and accentuate the scene further. You can actually, I think, can see it. This is interesting. What sort of lamp is this? But yeah, you can see it right here as well, of course. This gives a very distinct feeling. The lighting here alone is so different. Even if this was the same room, if the lighting, you know, differs much like this, and here comes the light from the top, basically, just really, really nice. That alone really, as they say, accentuates everything a lot. The concept art took inspiration from contemporary game engines to help guide the prototyping and not just the visual development. Now, a room takes shape. Let's get into the 3D nitty-gritty. We had decided to go with a modular workflow so we could easily swap out wall types and materials, so the dimensions would have to be consistent and work with the plans and concepts we had decided to pursue. This is also good for modders, just saying. We were also making several visual variants for each culture, which meant that we had to try and keep the details of the walls and materials equally interesting for each different type. Big topic, as I just elaborated in the just a bit earlier. Another big limitation was the fact that we had never before made a scene within our engine like this, so that meant that there were a lot of uncertainties when it came to how much we could push the graphics and where the limits were. Since we were also going to have the artifact system, we had to make sure we left enough room for the artifacts and banners without having the environment taking too much attention. This became a trial and error phase to find a good baseline for each throne room. This one right here basically shows a very early draft of where you would need space so that artifacts could go there, right? We have potential banners, we have shields, we have maybe, you know, where the animal pelts hang. Now we have the artifacts, we have the throne, and then some other miscellaneous stuff like statuettes in these other locations. To create variation, we made sure to have the materials contrast with each other while still fitting together aesthetically, so no culture could have throne rooms that all felt exactly the same. This, along with changing some architectonic aspects, helped the scenes be more distinct. We also worked on adding variation to the grander levels. Here we wanted the difference to show in the cleanliness and brightness of the environment textures, as well as in the richness of details in the geometry and amount of decorative props. Visual examples of this are shown in the final chapter. We're gonna see that right there. This right here is primarily just different material and different construction, and this really adds a difference. Look at this. First of all, obviously you have the walls. The walls themselves, or rather the, you know, patterns on the walls are significantly different. This is a much darker room than this. But, more importantly, where the light is coming from, where the light shines in, and, you know, what that does to the position that we have in. Having windows down here is so different compared to having windows down here. Having these two columns here and then this arch, way different than having a window there instead. Yeah, we basically see it right there, and, oh, it's actually interesting, right? The, columns do change their texture variation, even if only slightly as we go. Actually, this one remains the same. It doesn't really matter. That's just mostly, I guess, you have different column potentials, and then that makes the throne room a bit different as well. Lighting and FX. A lot of our visual tech usually involves considerations for a top-down map, and since we didn't have much need for full-scale 3D room rendering and lighting in the past, we had to do a lot of rethinking to get this to work. We went from previously having 4 lights, moving up to 20 total light sources, and expanding the light types available with new ones like area lights, adding sphere and disc area lights. This helps illuminate areas such as room-filling bouncing light, seen to great effect in Mediterranean courts, and helps us with light coming in from the windows and other openings. Just look at this. This light, obviously highly unique compared to, for example, where it shines in through the window. This is a big step. In my opinion, a necessary step, like I said at the very start, to bring the game away from this percentage modifier thinking that you potentially could have, and more into the, how does my character feel? What circumstances does my character live in? But just because it's necessary doesn't make it easy or easily achievable, and the fact that we now are here, that we can now look at this and say, hey, my god, you will actually have a throne room like this, you will have the potential to place light sources like this, it's insane. This is something that I was hoping for a while, and seeing it is quite nice. Oh, look at that. A cross here, huh? Where are we? I think this is Armenia. Isn't this the Armenian lion? So we have a rock and a cross. Huh. Very interesting indeed. But yeah, look at this. The lighting, of course, there plays a very significant role. The light here and that light differ significantly as well. Another technique we used was animated lights. They move a little, flicker in intensity, very useful for making the fireplace feel like it's actually on fire and heating up the room a bit. To sell the atmospheric feeling in the room, we added some transparent particles with a little light fade on the sides of the windows and other select places. Even though it isn't adding to the real light of the room, it helps give it that last piece of convincing magic touch. We also use particle systems for effects like the fireplaces, candles, and torches. The concept art helped us find the vision of what we wanted to do. Starting with just the room geometries, we used the color use and general light level from the concept to create a lit space that felt cohesive, which we then would tweak and modify until they felt comfortable to look at. It's a big job. You gotta really say that this is a big job that they have never been confronted with. Very happy that they did it though. They didn't need to do this. They could have just given us whatever, you know, grand strategy system they could have re-implemented basically, but instead they said, boom, throw that out, we're gonna do something completely new. We're gonna go into a direction that hasn't been ventured in again. Big fan. As much as it must have been very difficult. Technical hurdles and bloopers. One of the hurdles throughout the development of the code scene were tools, a means for developers to manipulate the scene's contents more efficiently. Added objects, characters, lights, change their positions, add or remove to have a toolset that allow more quick iteration and direct interaction. It took time to develop a solution that made this part of work less tiresome. One of the downsides of not having readily available tools, you have to do those yourself and sometimes reinvent the wheel multiple times, but we're lucky to have an internal tools team that came to rescue us and that improved the processes immensely. This is a big topic that I think we also underestimate. In the last years, ever since I started the YouTube channel, I have spent a lot of time interacting, playing, giving feedback to both modders, but also to people that are developing their own games and are there for the first time, right? That maybe weren't ever in the industry, or rather, maybe just are on their own. Even if you're an experienced industry developer, if you start a project on your own, you are going to run into these exact same issues. And what I've seen time and time again is that the absence of tools and the absence of a rhythm, so of a working schedule, for example, that is so insanely detrimental, it can be really costly. Now, if you have a normal coding system, if you have something related to scripting events, for example, your content designers, right? You have general tools. They can always be better, they will always be advanced, but on the technical level, as they say, hey, if you don't reinvent the wheel, then you might have a really suboptimal tool, and that suboptimal tool will make working almost impossible. So this is something, again, where they could have just said, hey, we have the tools, you know, to do stuff like, I don't know, changing the map up a bit, you know, that on the technical level. We have the tools to do more content, more events and such. And instead they said, okay, what if we take it a step further though? What if we also actually do a reinvention on the technical level? We cover new grounds. That sort of stuff I have massive respect for. I won't praise that often enough. I'll tell you right now. I will always be very harsh on mechanics where I personally go like, I think this isn't, you know, this isn't exactly what I had in mind. This could be better. This could be in a different fashion. I would like to see it differently. I will say this in a very, very open and frank way, because I think us talking about it as a community, right? Talking about this is very important. But I also think that sometimes in a community, praise comes a bit too short. Because when you see something that you like, oftentimes you'll just be quiet about it. So yeah, I can't praise that often enough. If you're bored or annoyed by me praising it so often here. Now, not a clan, right? And not a cult, right? This is, yeah, this is definitely not a suicide cult right here. Everybody's dressed in white. That is a pretty neat bug. Then we have this. First of all, on the left, my queen. Are you, do you have a pencil in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? And on the right, that's a big-headed baby. You know, the modders behind God Herja. I have a right to have a character of mine. Oh, and yeah, I didn't even spot this guy. I have a right to be in, to basically have a character in God Herja. And I asked them, please give me somebody with a big head. This is basically me. This is what I want my character to be. A big head character right there. They say you shouldn't lose your head in code, but this is ridiculous. Yeah, look at that. The heads are a bit below where they should be. I can't imagine. Also, why is the chandelier so low? What's going on here? Very interesting though. I guess they all just ran into the chandelier. But yeah, you will have these sort of hiccups, right? Finished codes and courtly variation. The environment team has made a set of 3 different variations of each cultural type code that has their own architectural and or decorative flair and visuals. The scenes differ more in geometry and configuration or the construction materials used. Right. Let's take a look at the western codes here. You can see, first of all, that the material difference can really be felt. I gotta tell you, there has to be a historical example for this, right? But this tapestry is hideous. I pray every day that when I go and open the game, right? Like, or rather, I will pray every day, I should say. And I open the game, that I don't get this tapestry in my code. Again, it surely is historical, and I appreciate this being in, but my god, if I look at this in comparison, give me this stone wall. This looks good. This looks great. I will also say that, first of all, again, the material, of course, makes a huge difference here. You can quite quickly tell that, you know, this is a wooden floor, this is, what is this, ceramics or stone? You can definitely see the difference there. The wood floor as well, the way the light comes on it, this looks good. This just looks really good. The way the light falls into, of course, you know, through the windows. But then also, on top of that, just how different it feels based on the window location. Look at this, for example, and what the lighting looks like compared to this. It really makes a significant difference, and I love it. Ooh. Have we ever seen one of these this close to the throne? Usually they pop up like over here, right? Oh, interesting. Either way, yeah, this is just, it's really nice. I will tell you, what comes out in the end is, what is this book? Excuse you? This is a gigantic book. Yeah, no, but what is coming out here, it just looks really, really nice. Honestly, out of all these here, this is my favorite. I love not having a window up top. It makes this a bit warmer. You know, this one just looks a bit more aggressive. And I just love the light on these stones. It looks so nice. And then on the wood, that just looks so nice. The pattern is really good. Let's take a look at the Mediterranean, right? Yeah, these are the Mediterranean courts. What do we have here? Wow. Just this. Just look at this window. I like the particle effects here as well. Look at that window. It just looks really awesome. A huge difference, and you can see the different character poses. You can see the clown right there. But what makes a big difference is also the shape and the location of the columns, in my opinion. You can't really... No, you can see it here based on whether the window is there, right? But these two on this side, let's say if they both had the stone wall texture, it would still look significantly different. That is just because of this column. They do a lot of stuff with the variation that courts can have. Really, really good stuff. I still love this statue right here. Yeah, but beyond that, I think these two are like pretty similar, right? What's the difference here? There's a couch here. There's a bank there. I think that's about it, though. No. I think so. I mean, this is also new here for sure, but like the general strategy of this one is actually quite similar, I will say. This is a huge difference though. Yeah, this is a massive difference compared to the other court. I wonder where we are here. Croatia, actually. Right. Byzantines and then the Rahid Sultanate. Right, let's move on to the Middle Eastern courts. You can see it here as well. This is a very similar effect to the Byzantine that we had just there. When this changes, this is massive. Like this arch. This makes a huge difference right there. The floor patterns, of course, I really like this one, actually. This one looks really neat. This one honestly reminds me of a public bathroom. Again, of course, you know, that is very likely historical context, but I can't help it. This wood also very nice. I would always love a good wooden floor. Man, and so much really sweet tapestry that they have here. Yeah, look at this. Oh, this is pretty nice. Where are we? This is the Rahid Sultanate, right? The Fatimid Sultanate and the Almoravid Grand Emirate. Interesting. I feel like the, I mean, obviously the windows change significantly. This is a big difference here. But I feel like the wall columns themselves are more static in these. Why am I wrong here? No, I think they are more static. Yeah, these are basically like always the same. Huh. But the rest is like a huge change nonetheless. Now, this is the courts of India. Let's take a look at these. Yeah, I mean, this is massive. When you look at this courtroom, this texture... And this, yeah, I mean, this pattern right here, what is this, an elephant? Huge difference. This feels hugely different. Here we have the statue that we saw in the other screenshot, right? Yeah, I like the seating arrangement. I just wish it really was being used, then the couch right there. Right, and this brings us to the last segments of this dev diary, but there are some dev responses that I want to take a look at as well. Grander variance was a further change we added later in the development cycle, which helps give a little flavor to the progress of your court's grandeur. So this has been a topic some people brought up. Let's take a look at this. So this is Pomerania. You can clearly see a difference here, but I do share the point of view. So I really like it here at the... Look at this. Yeah, the wall just looks so different. That's really neat. But beyond that, let's take a look at this, right? We have a bank right there. We have a rug right here, and then we have some light sources over there. This also changes, interestingly enough, the actual floor... quality, I suppose. Oh yeah, no, it's dirty, I can see. Yeah, you can totally see it in this symbol right there. But I will say, just some more general bonuses would be nice. Now, they did say, and this is quite valid in my opinion, they did say that you will be adding as you have more grandeur. Obviously, this necessitates and this will lead to you having more artifacts as well, which will make it feel more full. So I can see it in that context. Also, look at this guy dancing. I'm sorry. This is actually hilarious to me. But I do feel like a bit more grander bonus would be nice. Just a bit more. Now anyway, let's move on to the dev responses. Where do we start? We start with this one right here. How many variations will we get per court type? There are currently 3 court variants for each of the visual culture groups, with each of these having 3 grander level variations of them, landing at a total of 12 variants, 36 counting grander variants. Part of the variation is also gained from the artifacts you chose to decorate your courts with, as some artifacts are hung on the walls or stand like furniture on the edges or on pedestals in the center. Yeah, I get this. I get the last part. I do think the more variation, the better, though. I mean, that's an obvious one, right? Looks good. One question. Do we get to decide which of the court styles we want? If no, what are the criteria for which one we will get? Visual style is based on various cultural and geographical triggers, a bit similar to how the game decides which holdings and units graphics to use. One way for the player to affect it is to hybridize cultures and pick the desired visual style there. Right, so Mediterranean, Continental European. If I were to do this, I could pick which one I get, right? Yeah. Mediterranean or Continental. We do have this one decision, right? And I brought this up back then, where you can redesign one of your rooms, but like, it just says that there is no room that you will visually ever see. It's just, obviously, it's just basically like, yeah, in your castle, you got a room, and that one looks a bit more Mediterranean now. I would really, really like it if you could have it even more modular, where certain aspects of a court, for example, just the floor, just the walls, that sort of stuff, could be added. I would really like that. Even if it's just some elements. You pay some money, you get that. I would really, really enjoy that, because then you would be looking at even more modularity, and that is always nice. On the long-term design roadmap, are there any plans to have the characters walk? Nope. Fair enough, I will say, because making them walk requires many different steps compared to making them stand somewhere. You know, there's a lot more to calculate in there. And of course, this also has to be added. You will be in this throne room, and it will play a big role, but imagine being in multiplayer, and somebody's in the throne room, and for example, you know, hey, they're like, oh, somebody's walking around right now, I need to wait until they're over there, so please pause the game, right? That would suck. You need to have a certain snappiness to these courtrooms, because if you don't do that, it will impede both in multiplayer, but also in single player. If you have to wait for things, that sucks. So making people walk around, I think, needs to be carefully considered. I could see this, or I would like to see, let's phrase it like this, I would like to see this for stuff like, if you marry someone, if that were to happen in the courtroom, you could, during the event, right, as you have the event text, let's say on the right or left side of the screen or at the bottom, you could see them slowly marching in. Like, it's like an animation, they're marching, you know, they're standing there, you know, maybe somebody, the wife is being brought to the altar, right, that sort of stuff. I could see that, because then it is event-based. Once you click the event button, the thing changes, the scene is over, right? But the general walking around, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it adds much, and I think it would rather impede how usable the actual court is. Why are grander variants so similar to each other? I can tell from another only when I see both at once. It's a gradual change that happens to the court over time, and we decided to avoid going from luxurious down all the way to overly dilapidated or trashed. A king or higher would have some standards, was the angle we took. Again, understandable, but the more variety, the better. There's no, there's nothing else I could add to that. Is the fireplace still on in the summer? Good question. The hearth is ever burning in the king's court. Right now, seasons aren't shown in the courts that are indoors, and we don't really model... okay, wait, quick correction. They corrected this below as well. All courts are indoors. I wish we had a garden. I really do. Let me plant something. Make Animal Crossing Crusader Kings. And we don't really model the day-night cycle in the game, but maybe that's something we can think about in the future, even if it's not planned at the moment. I would like it. Yeah, it's an extra tidbit. You know, seasons and day-night cycle, extra tidbit that I would definitely welcome. No, specific variant is picked at random based on your capital location, right? So this is the specific location variant that you get for your court. If you are a Western court, then you get different Western courts rolled, basically, based on where your capital is. If you move your capital, it changes. I realize it's not a very satisfying answer, but player customization is limited to placing artifacts. Making proper UI and the mechanics for editing static room elements was simply too much for the scope of the expansion. Doesn't say we don't have plans for that, okay? I would like to see it. I would really love to see it. I think this is like, would be the non plus ultra, basically, right? The exact step further. We already have this great system, but that would make it even greater. How open is the whole thing to modding? Totally open. Add new culture themes based on triggers, add more variations within the culture. Scene configuration itself is in script files. That one can add it manually or with some debug tools. Nice. I love to see that. Agamede, so long game short, I'm sure will implement a full-screen barbershop that fully utilizes the court system. I would be surprised if Agamede didn't do that. Could you mod in variation choice, similar to how the barbershop works for clothing? It might be possible with modding the culture theme selection, but not with a variant within the culture. Alright, so that is a restriction. I know that after this DLC I will not be able to continue playing. I know it's impossible for my toaster to run so many graphics. This is a big one. CK3 is great about optimization in general. It runs so fast. It is so well done. But I have heard this concern a lot. It doesn't concern me personally because I have a decent computer, but obviously if you have a bad computer you should still be able to play the game, right? That's not true. If you have character animations disabled, courtrooms will become a static picture, rendered only once when the view is opened. Meaning, you open it, it's an image, and then everybody just... Right? That's nice. This should be optimal for the performance. I hope that it really performs as well as they say, because would be a huge shame for a feature like this one to cut people out. I don't think they want that, and I don't think that they will let that happen. That has to be a big topic for them. If character animation is enabled, will we see characters doing animations? Of course, you get full spectrum of things. Animated characters, special animations for some court roles, flickering and trembling lights from fireplaces, smooth camera transitions between points of view, optional slight idle camera panning. There you go, nice. Welcome to active play's first loading screen. Is what this person thinks this means. Please don't presume to know it in advance. Your statement is not true. Even on extreme low spec machines, it'll take 2 to 3 frames to give you a complete scene picture. Nice. That is a big one. That's a big one. On extremely low spec machines, 2 to 3 frames. 2 to 3 frames. And you have a full picture. I will love finally, you know, hitting 2022. This DLC comes out, we finally have it, and then we can look towards a future of content that includes these never done before systems. I will always, and I know I've said it before, but I love repeating it because it's so important to me. I will always applaud developers that want to do new things. Hearts of Iron 4 with the Officer Corps doing new things. Victoria 3, oh my god, Victoria 3 is blowing it out of the water with all of the new things that they want to do. The ambition that is captured in this sort of behavior is honestly, it's amazing. I love witnessing it, I love playing it. That is what I want for the games that I invest money in. This one is exactly one of those things. This throne room, everything that they've done, the difficulties that they've talked about, that is a big topic of what it means to be doing something new, to do something that hasn't been done before, and I'm happy that they did it with all the difficulties that this included. I hope so are you, but if you're not, or if you are, let me know in the comments. I will see you later, alligator.